Hey everyone, my name's Anna and welcome to this new video blog that I'm trying out. It's called WtheFMusic and it pays direct homage to the new trend on the internet that started with What the Fuck History and What the Fuck Science. I may be jumping on the bandwagon just a little bit. But what better time to share the awesome joys of classical music? Don't roll your eyes at me, people. I know where you live. Okay, no, I don't know where you live, but let's just pretend that was a threatening statement and get on with it, okay? But seriously, I think this is a great opportunity for me to banish some stereotypes, mainly the ones that say that all classical music is boring, because it's not. And while some composers lived their lives in a church and wrote all their music for the church, like Bach, others didn't, and some of them were actually pretty horrible people, like Wagner, and some were ridiculous party animals that would put frat boys to shame, like Mozart. And for the record, Bach may have lived his whole life in a church, but he did some awesome things with music. The man is a literal genius. But maybe we'll talk about that later. So, that being said, let me take you into the world of the crazy classical music, one step at a time. Okay, for this first video, I'm going to talk about something very near and dear to my heart. I am talking, ladies and gentlemen, about Hector Berlioz's Symphonie Fantastique, or as I like to call it, the symphony about an acid trip. Now my psychic powers are telling me that you are all cocking your heads to the side in confusion and bewilderment. But don't worry people, I'll explain it step by step. First off, we have this guy named Hector Berlioz, who's a French composer from the early Romantic period. Date-wise, we're talking early to middle 1800s. Okay, he's a pretty cool guy in my personal opinion, but what's important is that in 1827 he falls in love. Her name is Harriet Smithson, and she's an actress, and he is infatuated. He's also never met her. Berlioz sees her play Ophelia in a performance of Hamlet in Paris, and for him it is love at first sight. He wants nothing more than to meet her, because he thinks if they meet, they'll fall hopelessly in love. Like from that moment on, they'll click, and she'll realize with one look how amazing he is. I have a feeling that some of us fangirls could possibly relate to that sentiment. Maybe. Possibly, if you squint really hard. So, after Berlioz sends Harriet multiple love letters professing his love, and she never responds to one, he gets a bit upset. Unrequited love can do that to a person. But unrequited love can also be the fuel for new inspiration, and lo and behold, 3 years later, Berlioz premieres his new symphony. Yes, 3 years after he saw her for the first time. The guy knows how to hold a torch, I'll give him that. This new piece is called Symphonie Fantastique. And if you don't know French, this loosely translates to Fantastic Symphony. I know. And it's a little bit different from your standard symphony. With most instrumental music, where there's no words to convey meaning, composers usually let the audience interpret what the meaning is for themselves, instead of trying to convey it in some other way. Sometimes they'll leave a broad concept in the title for the audience to be clued in, like in Beethoven's Third Symphony. It's entitled Eroica, which means heroic in Italian, so it's all about feeling heroic and being heroic and all these feels about heroicism, and just by knowing the one word, the audience is suddenly clued in to what the piece is supposed to mean. But is that what Berlioz does? Hell no. Berlioz does not want you to misinterpret this at all. He's not even letting you guess at what it is. He doesn't want you to be close. He wants you to know precisely what everything means. So in the program, Berlioz leaves an extensive summary about the overall plot of this symphony, and then continues to explain the meaning of each and every movement. This is basically like an accompanying short story that goes along with the whole symphony. And what's it about, you may ask? Well, it's about an acid trip. Or, you know, some kind of trip induced by opium. Is opium an acid? Does it have to be acidic to count as an acid trip? I don't know. But seriously, let me read you the opening paragraph. A young musician of extraordinary sensibility and overflowing imagination in a paroxysm of despair caused by unhappy love has poisoned himself with opium. The drug is too feeble to kill him, but plunges him into a heavy sleep, accompanied by the weirdest visions. His sensations, emotions, and memories as they pass through his diseased brain are transformed into musical images and ideas. The beloved one herself becomes to him a melody, an recurrent idée fixe, which haunts him everywhere. So yeah, he takes an acid trip. And this symphony is all about his trippy visions. Now, we don't know for a fact that Berlioz is referring to himself in actuality, but we can pretty much assume. And the bit about the unhappy love? Gee, I wonder who that could be. Now for those of you paying attention and guessed Harriet Smithson, congratulations, you win the prize. It's nothing. So basically this whole symphony is about his fantasies of Harriet during his acid trip. But then Berlioz goes on to give a detailed explanation for each and every movement, as each is a different part of the story. Let's go piece by piece. Movement 1. Reveries and Passions. This is when he sees her for the first time, and he starts feeling all these amazing emotions like volcanic love and fiery passion. Basically, he's feeling all the hormones from his boner. Okay? But we get in this first movement what's called an idée fixe, which literally means fixed idea, and it's a little melodic snippet or phrase that's supposed to represent his lady love, aka Harriet Smithson, which is how I'm going to refer to her throughout the whole thing. Because for all intents and purposes, this is Miss Harriet Smithson. This little snippet's going to keep happening in every movement, and it's going to change a little bit every time to reflect either what's happening or reflect Harriet's role in her part of the story at this moment. Movement 2 is called a ball. Literally, he's at a ball and he sees her again. That's it. Movement 3 is called Scene in the Country, because now he's out in the country being existential and having deep thoughts. Here's some shepherds in the background, and he starts thinking about the lady again. And you hear Smithson's little melodic phrase, but now it's kind of dark and creepy, and it's all like he gets dark thoughts, like what if she's unfaithful? Oh no, what if she doesn't love me? Now, if you're me, you're kind of sitting here like, okay, this is the most boring acid trip ever. Though I've never been on an acid trip, so I don't know, maybe they're all that boring. But, trust me, now it gets weird. Movement 4 is called March to the Scaffold, and it starts with him already having killed Smithson in some form before this movement starts. And now he's been sentenced to execution. And you know how the French are. The only way to execute somebody is to behead them. Gory style. So, this whole movement is about him being marched to the scaffold by British officials, where this giant crowd, a bloodthirsty French crowd of people, is waiting for him to show up so they can see him be beheaded. So then he gets there, and while he's waiting to be beheaded, he gets a brief little thought of Harriet Smithson running through his head, that little melody floats through, and then whack, axe comes down, and he dies. And that's how the movement ends. Movement 5 is called Dreams of a Witch's Sabbath, and this is where the crazy train comes to town. Because now he starts dreaming that he's at this giant party for witches and goblins and all creepy specters and all creepy stuff, and they're there to celebrate his burial. Whether he is alive and going to be killed and buried again, or this is his, spirit that is dead from the beheading but kind of there to witness the party, I don't know. But he's gonna get buried, and the witches are really excited about it. There's creepy music, lots of screeching and strange sounds, and then the party's getting going, and then all of a sudden we hear that idée fixe again, the little melody for Harriet Smithson. But this time, it's all twisted and creepyified. This creepy sound is kind of to represent that Smithson is basically showing up as one of the witches. She's actually what I like to call the HWIC, Head Witch in Charge. Thank you. She's there to lead the crazy witch orgy. Seriously, he uses the phrase diabolical orgy in the program notes. I'm not making that up. That's not me taking liberties. To be fair, the word orgy didn't mean then what it means today, but he still said it, so we're gonna count it. So now that she's there, the party really gets cooking, lots of creepy music, and her creepy little melody, plus the Dies Irae theme, which I'm sure you all have heard. It means death and dying in Latin. It literally means day of wrath. It goes, bum, 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 bum. The reason I'm sure you all heard it is because so many people use this in so many things to represent death and dying. What's also interesting about the Dies Irae theme in this movement is that usually you hear it kind of somber and slow and drawn out, but in this movement it's almost bawdy and raunchy, and because of that you can tell that the witches and the goblins and everything are really excited about the fact that this guy's gonna die and this guy's gonna suffer. Needless to say, this trip took quite a bad turn at the end. Now, something cool about this movement is that Berlioz had to make up a new technique and music term just for his vision to be fulfilled.
It's called coleño. It's used by string players, and it's when you take your bow and you flip it so that you start strumming the strings or bowing on the strings with the wood of the bow. Coleño literally means with the wood in Italian. And I'm actually surprised that the violinists would do this for him, because most people, even today, are scared that playing that way will damage their bow and mess up the wood, and usually a lot of people end up buying cheap bows just for those purposes anyway. But it has a really cool percussive and scratchy sound, and it sounds awesome in this piece. If you want to look it up and you go to the fifth movement, it's at like the 8-minute or 8.5-minute mark. Definitely check it out. So, this symphony comes out, and it gets pretty well received by the public. It gets frequently performed for the next 15 years, and it's actually still performed a lot today, every so often. And what's funny is that Harriet Smithson actually hears this symphony about 2 years after it comes out. And what's funnier is that this convinces her to meet Berlioz. Now, I don't know exactly how clear it was that the symphony is about her, but if she knew, I'm really curious about why that suddenly made her want to meet him. And I'm also kind of curious as to how that first meeting went down, because shortly thereafter, they got married. I shit you not. 'Cause nothing says true love like your husband having dreams he's killed you. Needless to say, the relationship wasn't built on anything substantial, because they divorced only a couple years later after a really unhappy marriage. So, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Want to meet and marry your celebrity crush? Just write a symphony about all the twisted things you did to them while you were high on opium, and they'll realize how awesome you are and want to marry you on the spot. You may eventually find out that you two have nothing in common because you've only spoken 10 words to each other, but at least you got to have sex with them. Well, probably. And that concludes my first What the Fuck Music segment. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll probably be posting some audio links down below, so please, if you have a chance to check those out, do so. And also please like, subscribe, share, follow, reblog, whatever it is that you do, depending on what site this video is on. So yeah, that's it. Please tell your friends if you like it, or, if you don't like it, keep it to yourself. Thanks. I'll be seeing you soon.